In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly what to do when your cold emails are not working. I get DMs like this all the time from different business owners, people in my network who are specifically running cold email and are not having a lot of success with it. Does it not work for them? No. There's often just a couple things that you need to tweak in order to actually start getting some conversions. It just takes a little bit of persistence, a little bit of digging in to each step of the funnel. And so in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly what to do. Before we dive into it, if you don't know me, my name is Isaac Wood. I'm the founder of levergrowth.io. We are an outbound B2B demand generation agency. And in the last couple years, we've booked over 1,000 sales calls for our clients. We're in the trenches doing this all the time. And I've looked at hundreds of different campaigns. And this is exactly what you need to do to get a cold email campaign working. So before we really get into it, I just want to show you what is potentially possible. So these are a couple screenshots from campaigns that are in my smart lead. So you'll see there's a lot of different sending numbers here. The things that we're really going to be focusing on today are reply rates and your positive reply rates. Now, these are the big indications of campaign success. You'll see here that open rates are not even tracked, nor are click rates. And the reason why we're not tracking those is pretty simply that they are not actually indicative of a good campaign. And what I mean by good is a campaign where your prospects are actually responding positively to your messaging, that are actually filling your pipeline, that are booking meetings with those prospects. So open rates do not show this. The reason why is they can be gamed. It also has a negative impact on your deliverability. We don't even track this at all. So in terms of reply rates, you'll see a bit of a range here. This is definitely going to be towards the upper range, 11.5. You'll see down here 2.3 to 3.49. Now in October 2024, late October, Q4 2024, we're typically seeing average campaign rates anywhere from 1 to 5%. Ideally, it's closer to 2 or 3 or 4% and up. Anything below 1% means you're going to have a deliverability issue, which I'll get into in a minute. In terms of your positive reply rates, we're looking for anything above 10%. If it's below that, then that typically means you're having a higher percentage of total replies that are not interested, which typically will mean that you're going to need to change your offer, you need to change your messaging, and you need to make that better. So let's talk about what a good cold email funnel looks like and give you some context there, right? So this is the model that we use to measure our success across our campaigns for our clients. And this is what we will look to in order to actually audit and see what things we need to do to actually make it perform better, right? So if you know how each step in the process is supposed to be, you have your model, then you can measure against it. So each step will be a potential constraint and will allow you then to figure out what you actually need to adjust in order to get a better result, right? So we're looking at a 5% prospect reply rate, of which we expect at least 10% to be replying positively, of which we'll expect 50% will actually engage with our lead magnet, which we'll be providing to the prospect, which is typically going to be something like a Loom video, a lead magnet, some kind of an audit, sharing a video sales letter with them, of which we'll get an extra 50% to book in, of which we'll show 80% in the meeting, right? So let's run through some numbers to just give you a sense for what this actually looks like in practice. So let's say you have a campaign of 5,000 prospects. We'll say they're going to do the 5% reply rate, which is pretty typical for today. So that means that of the that should be 250. So 5,000 times 0.05 is going to be 250. So that means you will have 250 replies. If we expect 10% positive replies, that's going to be 25, of which 50% will actually engage with our lead magnet. So that's going to be 12.5. From there, we expect another half to actually book in. So that's going to be 6.25. And then 80% actually show up. So that's 5. 5 meetings out of 5,000 prospects. That is a 1 to 1,000 lead to meeting ratio, which we'll call LTM. So this is going to be your benchmark. Your lead to meeting ratio is exactly what you're looking for to measure the success of your campaigns over time. So you'll work to drive this number down. So if you can get more prospects to reply, if you can get more positive replies, if you can get more people to actually engage with your lead magnet, if you could get more people to book in, then obviously you're going to get better results, and this number will be further down. So this is basically the benchmark that we'll start to measure against when any of our clients start new campaigns. So this is the first benchmark to hit. And once we've hit that, great, then we continue to work it down. If we haven't hit this yet, then we test each step of the way to optimize for our lead to meeting ratio. And ultimately, we get those meetings booked in. So let me just show you what that actually means in terms of how you would like to think about this, right? So going back to the model that we have, let's just zoom out a bit more so we can just see it side by side. So we have 5% reply rates. What happens if your reply rates are low? So it's pretty typical that if you have a reply rate that is below 1%, that means that you have, call it a deliverability issue. So that is a deliverability problem. So what does that actually mean in practice? So a deliverability problem is simply going to be you're not inboxing properly. So that means you could be going into spam, and your emails will never be read if they're in spam. So the way that you solve for this is you will do inbox tests and domain tests to make sure that you're not on blacklists, to make sure that you're actually getting into the inbox. If you are actually not getting into the inbox and your domains are blacklisted, best case scenario is that you just buy new ones and get new ones set up. It's going to be your fastest path to success. What you can also do is put those inboxes that are impacted on warm up and have those just sit on a warm-up pool and not do any cold outbound messaging for a period of 2 weeks. You can test it again, check if you're inboxing. If you're inboxing, again, great, put them into a campaign. If not, just keep them on warm-up for longer. If you're concerned about getting your volume consistent, then my recommendation would be to just scrap them and start new ones if you're seeing a massive decline in your total replies. So that's how you're going to solve for reply rates. Now, anything above 1% is solid. Ideally, you're trying to get higher than 1.1%. Ideally, it's 2 or 3 or 4% higher. And it very much depends on how regularly your target audience is getting cold emails. The more cold emails your audience gets, the better your message and your offer has to be. And therefore, you're going to likely see lower reply rates in more competitive niches, just as an aside. But if you're in that range, great. You start to look towards your positive reply rates. So if your positive reply rates are low, so what that means is you probably have an offer or a targeting problem. So what does that actually mean? Based on our model, we're looking at a 10% positive reply rate. If we have 10% of our replies as positive, great, we're on the right track. We can continue to just hone our offer or hone our targeting and just make it better. If it's below this number, then that means that we have a problem. So first thing we'll typically start to look at is your targeting, because that's going to be more easily defined because you can actually observe exactly who it is you're reaching out to. The first thing that you want to see is, hey, are we actually reaching out to the right people? Are they, in fact, the decision makers at these companies? Are we hitting up the actual group, right? If you're doing, call it paid media, do you need to be talking to the brand managers? Might not be. If you're focused on selling to sales leaders, then you probably don't also want to be hitting up operating leaders, right? So it really depends on your offer and your target audience, but just really focus on making sure that your targeting is on point. And the way that you can do that is by leveraging Clay to score your leads and make sure that anybody who is not a good fit is just completely removed. That's going to give you a nice positive tick on your reply rates. That's definitely going to improve your positive reply rates and overall your overall email engagement, which allows you to just continue to be successful. If your emails are getting replied to on a regular basis, that's great. That's going to look good with the email service providers. And as a result, you're going to be able to continue to inbox on a longer time horizon. So that's targeting. Now let's talk offer. So when you're looking at your replies and you don't have a lot of positive replies, look at your negative replies. Start to see what they're saying. If they're saying stuff like not interested or unsubscribe or go away or F off, that means that they probably are not in market for what you're selling. So that means that if you know that they're the right title and you've worked with those types of people before and they're at a good fit company, then you need to shift your offer. So that just means you're saying the same thing as everybody else. And so the way that you do, you actually can move the needle there is you will focus on creating something that is getting them a better outcome and it reduces their risk further. Changing up your copy, changing up the way that you're actually presenting the offer is going to be what you want to test to actually start increasing that positive reply rate. But let's just assume that now you've fixed your deliverability, you've fixed your offer, you've fixed your targeting, but your booking rate is low. So going back to this example here, we have lead magnets and we have call booking. If your overall booking is low, that's going to be likely a time to lead problem. So what this means is you need to get back to the lead very quickly. When they reply to you, the best conversions happen within that first 2 minutes. The first 5 minutes is great. Even the first hour, that's going to be front of mind with the prospect still. If you do it within 5 minutes, it's going to be something like 40 times conversions versus if you just waited an hour or a full day. Right, so really focusing and getting the prospect replied to in a very short time frame is going to really substantially improve your conversion rates and should absolutely be optimized for whenever you're doing your inbox management. Now, if you are getting back to those people quickly enough, great. You might not be getting the engagement on the lead magnet. So if you're sending like Loom videos or you're sending Gamma documents, you can track to see if people are actually looking at your stuff. If they're not looking at your videos, it likely means that it's too long. If they see a 30-minute video, they might only have 2 minutes. So shorten it up. Make sure that the idea behind your video is good. Make sure that it's actually like compelling and is solving real pain points. Because if it's not, then they're just simply not going to care. So really just focusing on the content and what's actually behind it is going to go a long way. So thinking about the quality of the content, how it's actually presented. So what that means is like, again, it can't be 30 minutes if they only have 2 minutes. So you got to make sure that it's the content is aligned with the prospect and how they consume it. So ideally there's some written form, ideally there's a video form as well. So they can take it in and consume it at their own pace and where they're at in life, right? So if you can do both of these things, that will improve your booking rates. Now, the last one here, if you are booking calls, but people aren't showing up, what does that mean? That means you have an appointment setting problem. So what is an appointment setting problem? It is basically you're not giving the prospect enough reason to show up to the call. So what we're going to do is make sure that you have pre-call flows set up absolutely every single time. Make sure that they have at least 3, a confirmation and a couple reminders before the actual meeting. These are going to be giving them content, social proof, case studies, video sales letters, stuff that's going to give the prospect more context and build trust with them. So when they hop on the call with you, they're not simply just, hey, what am I here for? Like, what do you actually do again? They're already going to have an idea of what that is about. So the call is going to be warmer. You're actually going to have more people show up, and it's going to actually improve your close rates. For example, we set up some pre-call flows with our clients, and some of them were having massive issues with actual show up rates. They were below 50%, and when they show up, they weren't any good. So what we were doing was we set these up, and it actually improved the overall close rate of the deals, because the people who were bad fits just didn't show up because they realized after the pre-call flows, hey, this isn't going to be a good fit, so they canceled the meeting. And when they did show up, they were actually more qualified and they were warmer because they'd already seen the stuff, they'd already been engaged with the content, and so as a result, that was just pushing them a little bit closer to the finish line to actually close the deal. So this is plainly how you audit your cold emails. There's no like one size fits all way to do it, but you pretty much just have to focus on what is each step, have a model, and then dig into each step in that model and figure out what your constraint is. Once you've identified your constraint, then you solve for that constraint, plain and simple. That's the video. Simple scales, doesn't have to overcomplicate it. Just do the work and you'll get the results. Talk to you in the next video. Peace.